Welcome to Behind the Ticker. I'm Brad Roth, Chief Investment Officer of Thor Financial Technologies and Portfolio Manager of THLV, the Thor Low Volatility ETF. Behind the Ticker uncovers the inner workings of the ETF industry. We will interview portfolio managers and ETF service providers to dive deep into their work lives and their businesses. We will learn the inner workings of their strategies and what drives them as they continue to grow their company. Many of these individuals are entrepreneurs and will have unique and compelling insights to share as much goes on behind the ticker. Please note, nothing in this show is investment advice, and it is meant solely for educational and entertainment purposes only. Welcome to episode 4 of Behind the Ticker. Today we have Dave Mazza. He's from Roundhill Investments. They have a very unique lineup of ETFs. They've done a great job raising assets for a handful of them. But today we're going to talk about their newest issue, which is their AI-focused ETF, ticker symbol CHAT, C-H-A-T. This ETF was just released about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So it's brand new. We're going to learn all about how it works and how it operates. And I think you're going to get not only an education in the difference between AI and generative AI, but also some of the companies they're looking at and how they're building this index. So without further ado, here's Dave Mazza. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brad.
So today we have Dave Mazza from Roundhill. He's here to talk about their newest issue, CHAT, C-H-A-T, vests solely in AI companies, which is, as we know, very, very hot right now. But before we do that, Dave, why don't you tell me about your background and how you got in the position you are today?
Yeah, thanks. So I started my career at State Street Global Advisors and spent over a decade there. For many years, led their ETF research team in the SPDR ETF business, launched a great number of terrific products. Then I transitioned to Oppenheimer Funds, helped lead their ETF sales and marketing effort before the acquisition by Invesco. Then transitioned to Direction, which was more focused on leverage and inverse products and thematics, and leading their product development and strategy efforts. And then now I'm at Roundhill as the Chief Strategy Officer, kind of bringing all the elements of my career together, and excited to be part of what's a really dynamic team that we have at Roundhill.
Yeah, it's funny you say Drexon. I was in New York earlier this week. I was sitting, having a glass of wine, and lo and behold, the whole team from Drexon was sitting next to me. So had a funny conversation with them, asking for refunds for any accounts I blew up as an early trader. But very So, Dave, I'd like to get to learn a little bit about you personally. What do you like to do outside the office other than just talking about ETFs? I've talked to pilots. I've talked to sailboat racers. What do you like to do?
So these days, I have 3 daughters. So these days, spend a lot of time, as I like to joke, as a part-time Uber driver, ferrying them to their various sports and other activities. But in all seriousness, one of the things I love to do is I still get a chance to do a couple ski trips a year. I grew up skiing, really, really passionate about it, really being outdoors in particular. Also love to travel. So whether that's domestically or I actually have a trip planned to Italy later this summer. Wow. To me, it's a great opportunity to just gain different perspectives. And also, I think it helps me in my life and my career to kind of step outside of your day-to-day. And it doesn't need to be a crazy long trip to do that. It could be a hike or something of that nature, just in somewhere new.
Yeah, I just started skiing again for the first time in 10 years and realized how much I missed it. My kids are now old enough where they can do it. And it's been, even though my back is having a hard time holding up, and they invented the leashes now that you could put them on, which has been very helpful. So let's transition to the ETF business. Let's transition to Roundhill. Roundhill has a number of niche products. I think my favorite ticker is NERD, N-E-R-D, which focuses on video game companies. But can you kind of just briefly touch on the lineup as a whole and what you guys have out there?
Yeah, so the firm was founded on the premise of really creating unique ETFs that are truly differentiated and particularly kind of providing exposure to either emerging themes or existing themes, but done in a different way. And of course, a lot of ETF providers, large and small, talk about differentiation, talk about precision. It's sort of the hallmark of the product. But if you peel back the onion, many products may not be that. And so Will Hershey and Tim Maloney founded the firm a few years ago. And some of the first ETFs were primarily in the thematic space. And that is an area where the firm had some great success, whether it's nerd and sports betting as the first sports betting ETF, the first metaverse ETF, METV, the sports betting ETF ticker is BETS. And now most recently, our generative AI ETF CHAT. So we are, again, focused on offering areas that others may have not seen yet. And when we do, we look to develop distinct products, but it's not all about thematics. We have a handful of products that we launched earlier this year called the Bigs.
Yeah.
And these provide concentrated exposure to areas like banks and technology. So it's just the 6 largest money center banks. That's it. Right. If you look at some existing sector and industry ETFs, it's really watered down exposure. That certainly has paid off from a performance standpoint by focusing just on the larger banks. But really the theory there is giving people precision. The same can be said about Big T, which is our big technology ETF. And that is just focused really on the FANGM stocks. And again, the idea there, it's not about trying to be niche or that. It's about giving that precision exposure. So I view those more as kind of trading tools, if you will, that folks can certainly invest in them over the long run if that's your view, that you don't want to have mid cap or small cap exposure, but they can be very powerful without having the issues that come with daily leverage to be able to provide pinpoint exposure to areas, particularly around earnings season.
So I might be making an assumption here, but are you driving AUM growth more from retail investors, or are you out there talking to advisors?
So our core kind of, I think, client segment to date has been direct retail, combined with some advisors. With that being said, we would love to engage with advisors, and it's not a retail only type strategy. I would want to be clear, but direct retail, particularly because of our firm's focus on providing content in social media that's easy to absorb, understand, and is fun, has led to really direct retail coming our way, which is something which we love and support. And we pride ourselves on having smiles on our faces and being fun. I love ETFs. I'm lucky to have found that as my career, and that's a passion that I'm happy to share with anyone who's willing to talk about it.
So let's pivot back real quick to the bigs. Do you think because I think that's more interesting with precision exposure within large areas. Do you see that maybe as more of an avenue to talk to advisors about? Because I think that's a very interesting take to be able to get more direct precision exposure in some of these big areas. Yeah,
no, those, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Those products, I think, have a different type of appeal. Whether that's to advisors who are doing sector rotation strategies, who might want to complement what they're doing with existing sector and industry ETFs, many of which I know intimately well from my time at State Street, or again for someone who has different types of exposure in their portfolio. Let's say that they're a long-term buy and hold, and they're focused simply on low cost passive at the core. There's nothing wrong with that. But if there's an opportunity for them, or they have a tactical sleeve, products like this can really work well. Yeah. Because of that pinpoint exposure. And the beauty here is, like most ETFs, not all these days, you really know what you own every day. It's just the 5 largest tech stocks or just the 6 largest banks. That's it.
Right. So staying on the retail marketing piece, and you briefly touched on this through social media, but how retail is finding you? Is that how you're going out and telling your story, mainly through social?
Yeah, so we have kind of a few core channels that we market through, and social media is a great one for us. Whether that's Twitter or LinkedIn or other channels that we're looking at, and also just being in the press through traditional media as well. I think the opportunity to spread your wings, the opportunity to get your message out there as wide as possible is paramount. You know, the ETF market is great because there's so much choice now for whether you're a retail investor, a financial advisor in any way, shape, or form, or a true institution. Any ETF could be looked at by you, but with all that choice does come the requirement, I think, to do more homework, so that you really actually know what you own. I think a lot of people, particularly with last year sell-off and then some of the wobbles that we've seen this year in select areas, you know, that's become abundantly clear to me. So, you know, what we do is we try to, again, publish research on our research section, put that in out there, whether it is social media, our email distribution list, what have you.
Got it. So let's chat about Chat, your newest issue. Can you tell me the difference just on the front end? What is the difference between AI and generative AI?
Yeah, so this is I think a good question, and it's something that we've been hearing. So when we think about AI, right, that is, you know, at the highest level, artificial intelligence, and that ranges from you know, really it's become ubiquitous, right? So it's almost, while a few years ago it might have been a hot dot, but it's increasingly important, and it has been for a few decades. So simply put, the earliest ideas about AI, which is crazy to think about, go back to ancient Greece and China. But it really wasn't until, you know, the 20th century where that term sort of came into the forefront. And the idea is creating machines, or as we would think of them now, computers, to think and perhaps act like humans. And so over, you know, decades, algorithms and computer programs have done that. And so, you know, we see AI use cases all the time, right? AI is used in healthcare to help diagnose diseases. It's used in autonomous vehicles. It's actually used in customer service, right? With chatbots and virtual assistants. So folks may be using AI every day, whether it's on their phone or what have you, and you might not realize it. So that's kind of AI at the highest level. Generative AI takes that a step further. It's a type of artificial intelligence that actually uses machines and computers and programming language to create new content. And so that new content can be, I think, what people are probably experimenting with ChatGPT,
right,
which is the fastest growing application to 100 million users ever. And that's text, right? So it's creating, you're putting in a prompt and it's responding with text. But generative AI, I think the use cases are much further than that. It's things like images and videos. And so because of the computing power, and Nvidia is at the forefront of a lot of this, the computing power that has come over recent years and the advances that have come in machine learning and large language models, we can get to this point. And now we're seeing the tip of the spear, if you will, of what generative AI can do, right? So, you know, there's a handful of areas that we're excited about, right? So creative industries. So we know that could be used to complement what's happening with people who are writing or designing to create new and original content. It could be used for everything from music playlists to news stories, to scanning other documents, to doing synopsises of that. Generative AI can be used in healthcare, right? Kind of taking that diagnosis a step further, but it also could be used to create new and distinct individualized treatments for people, which is exciting, to reduce the potential for time-consuming trials. It can be used in education. And we know you're hearing a lot about folks in high school or college about who are gravitating toward ChatGPT for that. But in all seriousness, it maybe could make educational materials more interactive, help with that learning side. And then lastly, of course, design, right? Think about generative AI could be designing better and new buildings or airplanes or cars. So it's I hate to say that it's limitless, but I don't actually think we're at a point to truly understand how much generative AI can do, because so much is happening now in a short period of time, because it's been out there. And like a lot of technologies that we see, it's happening very fast. And what I'm excited about AI is, and generative AI, is this is not something that you have to make a bet on and say, I hope this happens 10 years from now.
Right.
And that can be fine. There's some investments that I have that I know that they're long-term call options on something like gene therapy or what have you. This is today, right? Everyone from a 10-year-old to grandmas and grandpas can use generative AI in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, it's crazy actually how fast, as you said, how fast adoption has been. I leverage it for this show. Nothing generative wise. I mean, for putting together the transcripts or putting together captions, and so I can see, and it's made it a lot simpler and it's faster. So it's a space in which is very exciting. As you mentioned, Nvidia, obviously very, very good for their business. I see it as definitely a holding in the portfolio. So we're going to talk about how companies get selected. But before we do that, is the index for chat passive or is it an active index?
It's actually, so chat is an active ETF, fully transparent active. There's to geek out on ETFs, we know some are not fully transparent, nothing wrong with that, but this is fully transparent, like an index ETF, if you will.
Got it. So how do companies get selected then to be in this portfolio? Is there a screen that you're running?
Yeah, so it's the way I think about it is sort of it's a two-part, kind of a two-part screen. And what we're doing is we're looking at two things. One is a transcript score. And so we're going out and we are looking at company transcripts from publicly available documents, whether they're filings, presentations, press releases, to identify are companies talking about various generative AI and AI related terms. And we give that a score. So the more it's mentioned, the higher it is. Relatively simple. Now, that's not just it, right? Because what we don't want is just companies who are loading up, and we saw this with blockchain, right? Who are changing their name,
right, or
just throwing in AI and they have nothing to do with it. So the real research comes with what we call the sector score. And that's where we are identifying and looking at companies more from a fundamental basis. Traditional fundamentals, I should say. This is a quantitative approach, but it's looking at company revenues, profits, research and development spending on AI. And of course, companies that are doing that work would get a higher rank. So we combine those two things together. The way I think about it is it's a talking the talk and walking the walk. I think an either or approach could lead to some quarter solutions, as I mentioned. So this combination allows us to build the portfolio that's going to be adaptive and dynamic. Generally, folks should expect between 25 and 50 securities. We may invest in U.S. companies around the globe through direct listings or ADRs, what have you. And I think there's a big debate, and there's probably we could have a whole other podcast about this, is how do you build a thematic ETF? For themes that are existing or have been out there for some time, like cloud computing and cyber, index-based approach, and there's multiple ways of doing that, make a lot of sense to me. The transparency, we know the revenues that are recurring. Generative AI is so dynamic. We did not believe that an index-based approach would be appropriate today. That may change a year from now. That may change in the future. But as of today, the dynamicism that we believe by having this combined transcript score and sector score is beneficial to build the best portfolio. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And I believe you're going out the right direction, and which leads me into my next question, which I think you answered it. So would Chat invest in a company that is not only a direct contributor to generative AI, but a company that is heavily using it in order to gain efficiencies? So we know a company like Nvidia, they're contributing to the adoption of AI, but maybe a company out there that's positioning or pivoting a large portion of their company to using AI rather than a traditional use. Would that be a company you would look at as well?
I'd say perhaps, but primarily, we're looking at companies that are developing the generative AI technology or systems or services.
Got it.
Now, as I noted a moment ago, all of this is rapidly evolving and changing in good ways. So I'm not saying we're changing the investment process when I say that, but there's companies that could lead to be higher in the transcript score or the sector score may change. So we're looking, for example, to provide a little bit more detail. Are companies involved with machine learning, right? So that's required for generative AI to work.
Right.
There's also deep learning. So that's learning by example, natural language processing, computer vision, expert systems, which help humans make decisions. And so because it's so wide ranging, we want to cast a wide net, but what ultimately goes into the portfolio is more focused on your semiconductors, your software, your network infrastructure companies, services companies, perhaps some consulting companies for implementation of AI and the like. So it is more about who's powering it as opposed to who's using it.
Understood.
For the time being.
Yeah, understood. That was my assumption. I was just curious as the space evolves, and you guys definitely have flexibility with being active. So how are the weighting decisions used when you're putting this portfolio together? Is everything go in equal weight? Is it market weight? Is it active? Are you guys actively making a decision how you want to weight this portfolio?
Yeah. So the way to think about the weightings are there is has an element of proprietariness to it, but it really is simple. Let's think of a company, and Nvidia is the top holding. I think we can talk about valuation in Nvidia for a minute, but let's simply talk about why it's in a generative AI ETF. Well, they mention AI a significant amount, particularly generative AI. Mm-hmm. So its transcript score is through the roof.
Yep.
And we know through the research, the quantitative research that we do, looking at fundamentals, their revenue is actually coming, and they said it on their call in so much, is going to come from chips that power generative AI. So lo and behold, it has a high rank on the transcript score, high rank on the sector score, high rank in the portfolio, and so on.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the companies that are ranking high on that score. So who are the key companies that you're currently invested in? I mean, everybody's talking about Nvidia. The run it's been on has been unbelievable. I'm sure, with the last earnings call, we all saw what it did. And so, which would have been very good for your ETF. But who are some of the key companies that are ranking high on the score that you guys are heavily invested in?
Yeah, so we chatted a bit about Nvidia, and I think that is probably obvious to folks. But let's also talk about another large holding, Microsoft. Right? We know that they have an investment in CHAT GPT through OpenAI. They also are now having Bing Chat, Copilot with his AI for Microsoft Office, and in fact, actually Bing search engine, which had been a bit of second fiddle, of course, to Google, Alphabet's Google, has surpassed now 100 million daily active users after it implemented more AI-powered chat feature, and so that's a name that's in the portfolio because directly they're involved with it. Another name which is a large cap name is Baidu. Mm-hmm. They actually recently introduced what they call Ernie bot. Which has over 30,000 enterprise users who have applied for access to this. Ernie reportedly has 550 billion facts in its knowledge database, which blows my mind to think about.
Right.
And Ernie stands for Enhanced Representation Through Knowledge Integration. And it's kind of a fun name. But that bot and that naming tells you a lot of what you need to know about generative AI, right? It's sort of giving knowledge and integrating it in unique and better ways. And so that's why, those are some, I'd say, kind of obvious names that an investor would find in the portfolio.
Got it. So how often are you rescanning for opportunities and running a rebalance, running your transcript scores and your other fundamental look? So how often is this portfolio being reweighted and names added or deleted?
So, at a minimum, we would be looking at this on a quarterly basis, but I'd say it's more frequently than that. This is not a portfolio that's going to be turning over daily. We want to have some stability in there. And I think with companies that are more pure play generative AI, you can do that, which is great at this point. But we are, because the space is dynamic and there's particularly around earnings season, we will be, we're looking at this on a frequent basis, weekly. Does that mean we're turning it over? No. But it's something that we want to be cognizant of and aware of as new names perhaps become relevant, or if there are particular names simply because of performance, that may need to be reweighted. Doesn't mean we don't like Nvidia or AMD, for example, in the future if that happens, but we want to be able to ensure that people are looking for generative AI exposure, not just Nvidia plus a couple other names, for example, if that were to happen.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So is there anything else on chat that I need to be aware of or that we haven't brought up so far in the discussion? Because I want to pivot to a couple other final questions.
No, I think we touched on a lot of important topics. I think what I would recommend folks do is check out our holdings on our website. Again, there's going to be some obvious names in there even though some people would say, man, another ETF with the FANG names or the mega cap names. Sure, we are, again, it's not 50% of them. The idea there that we're not going to have exposure to Nvidia in a generative AI ETF is also hard for me to recognize.
Right.
But there's going to be names that folks may not be as familiar with. And I'll just give a couple. SenseTime is a company. It's a Chinese company. It's one of Chinese leading AI software companies. They have a large language model of their own. They're building a suite of products in the space. Adobe is another name, and that's more of a household name in the US. But why is Adobe there? Well, they're rolling out generative AI tools across their product suite, which is really cool. So folks who are using it to build images and things of that nature now can have almost an assistant to help improve their workflow.
Yeah, I would encourage people as well to go to the website because you put together a nice presentation about the fund as well as about AI and generative AI that was very easy to consume. And I think there's a lot of good information there. But let's talk about, I saw on your website, there's some things there that say coming soon. So you have a few funds there. What are they? When do you expect them to launch?
So primarily the coming soon funds are related to our big ETFs. So what's great about that strategy is you can apply it to a variety of sectors and industries. For many years, we've heard from investors saying, hey, I'd love some precision in home builders, or I'd love some precision in airlines or defense. That not that they can't get that exposure, but they don't want anything else. They just want the big caps or the real pure plays there. And so we have a handful that don't necessarily have launch dates, but have the potential to come into the market. And the beauty at Roundhill and what I've loved is the energy that we have, and the idea generation comes from everywhere. So there's not a day we don't put our lab coats on and start thinking about new ideas, because we hear and we love to hear from our investors or clients, right? Whether that's through reaching out on social media or reaching out to us directly. Keep the ideas coming.
Yeah, well, I see Roundhill as a source for when, and I, again, could be making an assumption, but when something new and innovative comes out, or there's a certain theme in the market, or even a lifestyle like bets you mentioned, right? Sports betting became very popular, that you guys will be a first mover in that area to get something thematic out in that space. Is that?
Yeah, we try to be. So thank you for that.
So, Dave, I want to just say thank you so much. This was very informative. I think you guys are going to have a lot of success with this. And so where can people go to learn more about your company and your funds?
Well, a couple places. So roundhillinvestments.com, that's our homepage. You're going to find information about all of our ETFs, whether you're looking at chat or bets or nerd or what have you. But then also blog.roundhillinvestments.com. That's our research page. And that's, again, free for everybody. A lot of ETF providers have great research. Some of it can range from hard to understand to easy to understand. We try to be on that easier to understand, but not dumbed down, right? So you can go right now and click on our AI section and learn a lot, not just about AI and generative AI, but the companies that are exposed to it, our forecast for the total addressable market for it, what the impact that it could have on the economy. So check that out if you're interested in learning more.
Well, again, Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and good luck with the ongoing launch of Chat.
Thank you so much.